Our first and only review of the day is going to be for the film American Psycho. American Psycho was a movie that came out in 2000 there. It is starring Christian Bale there as the titular character of Patrick Bateman. This movie was written and directed by Mary Harnon there. This is based on a novel by Brent Easton Ellis there. This is a kind of there's different interpretations the way people kind of look at this movie. What this movie is saying there. Some people think it is a hyper glorification of violence there, misogynistic, sexist there, especially of Patrick Bateman's treatment of women in the movie. Some people think it's a masterful class and satire in the attempts there of, kind of examining masculinity there. Specifically, this movie takes place in the 80s New York there, late 80s New York, where yuppie culture was at the height, was at its peak there. And you have this character in Patrick Bateman, who's this businessman who completely exonifies the yuppie type figure there. Rich figure here wearing these fancy suits there, making all these expensive reservations at restaurants there. You have that. So a lot of different interpretations people have on this, but it's basically just the movie just takes you inside the life of this figure of Patrick Bateman there as he tries to, as you see that while he's this businessman at day, he's the serial killer at night there, where you see him, has this psychotic rage there against most things, women, homeless people there, other various sex workers. You see that throughout the movie. So yes. And like I said, I have not read the book, but Neil has read the book there. Nick, have you read the book?
I've never read the book.
Okay.
Like, even by Ellis's own admission, he feels like I think in interviews he stated that the movie makes clearer a lot of the themes that were like not as explicitly stated in the novel, like a lot of the class satire.
Okay. And we look at this movie, it's got watching this movie again, it's like, man, I forgot how stacked this cast was. You have Justin Theroux, who's in this as well, people might know him. He was in Leftovers there. He was one of the villains.
Yeah, also wrote Tropic Thunder and Iron Man 2.
Wrote those movies there. So he's a versatile guy, Renaissance man, Justin Theroux there. Also in one of the best movies, Mulholland Drive, which came out a year later. So yeah, good for him. You also have Chloe Sevigny, who's also in this as well. Reese Witherspoon, who plays the fiance of Patrick Bateman there. You have Jared Leto in there as well. I guess that period of time, like 90s, early 2000s, that Jared Leto was just getting his ass beat. I mean, and Requiem for a Dream and American Psycho, and just life was just not good for Jared Leto in the late 90s, early 2000s. I guess.
To be fair, he did get the better end of the deal in Requiem for a Dream because he actually survived that movie.
I guess if you want to call that surviving, yeah, he kind of did. I mean, I guess compared to all the other fates, yeah. William Dafoe's also in this movie there as well, who plays a detective investigating Patrick Bateman there. So yeah, I mean, really, really stacked cast when you look at this as well. That really helps this movie as well. Josh Lucas, who's also in this movie as well there. He's kind of like lower grade Patrick Wilson. Like you might see Patrick Wilson, you go like, oh, that guy. But you don't know his name.
Yeah, you could tell that like the early 2000s, they were really trying to push Josh Lucas as like the next big thing, but none of the movies he starred in were hits.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But he's been in stuff like he was in Ford v Ferrari. He was in Glory Road there. He was the bitch boyfriend in Hulk. He was that guy.
Okay.
Yeah, he was that guy as well. Neil, from your perspective there, being a person who's read the book and watching the movie, what are some of your thoughts here on American Psycho?
So the author is right that the book is a bit more like metaphorical and nebulous with its themes, whereas the movie is much more like constructed in a cohesive narrative. But overall, I think this is a brilliant adaptation of the book, and this is a really hilarious juxtaposition of like the absurd and horrifying world of 80s yuppie culture and just materialism and capitalism as a whole. I think this is a wickedly funny movie, and Christian Bale gives one of my favorite performances he's ever done in this role, and I think this is just a very funny, very kind of creepy movie that really hits all the right notes.
Mm. Yeah. And some fun facts here about this movie. So you did have people obviously know this is one of Christian Bale's bigger roles, other than maybe Batman, which went on to play there, which was just 5 years later, which was in Batman Begins. But some other people that were considered for the role, you also had Ewan McGregor, who was also considered for the role there, but he turned it down there after Christian Bale begged him to. You also had Leonardo DiCaprio, who was also supposed to be Patrick Bateman there as well. He wanted more money to play the character there that they just didn't have. And also, I believe Gloria Steinem, people know as the Fed CIA agent, fake feminist infiltrator there, woman, also convinced him to back out of the role as well for it, to not play the character of Patrick Bateman there. And even some people were saying, Christian Bale was saying that some people even told him not to play the role of Patrick Bateman there because they said, hey, this was kind of maybe bad. I mean, given like what goes on in this movie, how violent this movie is, maybe it's not going to be good for your career to be in it. But obviously, ultimately, he won out there. And do you think it is a kind of career-defining role there, Nick? Christian Bale as Patrick Bateman?
It kind of is, in the sense that Christian Bale, for almost like the entirety of career, has always separated himself as one of, I think, the most versatile actors of the modern generation, from American Psycho, from Newsies when he was younger, from The Machinist, and The Prestige, even when he eventually won his Oscar for The Fighter. This is one of, I think, the early standout performances from him. And once you rewatch the movie with how ambiguous the ending and all the different ways you can interpret that, every like little glance and gesture and mannerism kind of takes on new meaning depending on how you're viewing this.
And the movie opens up really well. I mean, it establishes who this guy is kind of instantly and what he's kind of all about in this morning routine scene that's here. Oh, hold on. There you go. And you see that he lives in this really luxurious apartment here. Everything's all very pristine and clean, and everything lined up there.
West 81st Street, on the 11th
But also no personal touches.
My name is Patrick Bateman. I'm 27 years old. I believe in taking care of myself, in a balanced diet and a rigorous exercise routine. In the morning, if my face is a little puffy, I'll put on an ice pack while doing my stomach crunches. I can do 1,000 now. After I remove the ice pack, I use a deep pore cleanser lotion. In the shower, I use a water-activated gel cleanser. Then a honey almond body scrub. And on the face,
I see Neil. He taking notes like, "Oh, I gotta buy this on Amazon. I gotta get this."
Like,
and like,
maybe I should, take better care of better care of my
well, that
skin.
sounds
But
good.
Hey,
but I
hey,
think,
ice packs in the morning may be a good idea.
Face is a little puffy there.
I mean, an ice pack in the morning, I think, is like better than what the current trend is now. Of what is it now? It's like idiots hitting themselves in the face with hammers and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were people that did copy this routine there, that did actually kind of go like, oh, maybe I want to do the whole Patrick Bateman routine. There are actually people that did do that.
Yeah. And I think like something that's very striking about this whole scene is that we hear about like where Patrick lives before we hear like his name or how old he is. And it's kind of like the critique of this whole culture. It's like where you live. It's like what area code you have. It's like what you have is more important than who you are.
Yes.
Right. And the notes I was jotting down is just like his entire speech is just all about like the stuff he does. It's never about who he is, because who he is isn't important. It's like Nick was saying, like it's the location you live in, it's the stuff you have that is what defines you rather than what your actual soul is.
Yeah. And then there is something to be said that, something like this, I guess, does speak to people because you did have something that, I mean, that seems like almost a lifetime ago, but you did have that whole thing with Ashton Hall. There was this guy who did the
Oh.
kind of whole morning routine thing that went super mega viral there. And then he was, all these people started to copy it of like, hey, I want to do this and do all the stuff that this guy's doing. Even Nick, I mean, he drank the Saratoga water. He got some case of Saratoga water there for himself. Do you think that, in this kind of speaks to a larger point there about,
Mhm.
what kind of appeals to you think a lot of kind of people who misinterpret this movie with the Patrick Bateman character? Do you think it is like his sense of structure and sense of kind of, I guess, order in his life there that's perceived in the movie there that people kind of appeal to that they like a lot, with that kind of character of Patrick Bateman?
Yeah, I think it's like a little bit of of kind of a lack of media literacy where a lot of the people that see a character like Patrick Bateman, they see him and they see all the like glitz and glamour. They see, he has this beautiful like lifestyle, but they don't realize that the movie and the text is making fun of them. It is actively making fun of Patrick Bateman. This is like the Emperor's New Clothes.
Right. I mean, it's like you said, it's very surface level because like when we're first introduced to him, like he's got all this great stuff and he's in great shape and everything. But like, if you really think about it, the more the movie goes on, you more realize how hollow of a shell this guy really is. So yeah, unfortunately, it's media interpretation only through like the most surface level images imaginable, I would think.
Yeah. And to some people, I think I had this conversation with, somebody else there about, I don't think, when having conversation, I think we did a review for Fight Club that maybe they just don't care. They don't care. It's like saying with the Matrix, how that's been co-opted by certain movements there or things like Fight Club is they don't really care about the context or the subtext of things there. They just think it's cool and we'll take it on. And you know what I mean? And, it doesn't matter that Patrick Bateman's a deranged psycho or Tyler Durden's not real or the Matrix is about trans, ideology there or Dune is really, Paul Atreides is Hitler, like it doesn't really matter because he's these are cool, charismatic characters there. And, I spoke about, some of the criticisms of the movie there that some people had of they speak on it as a glorification of, yuppie culture of violence. Do you think the movie kind of strays into that territory at any point there, Neil?
I definitely think I think the movie really like actively satirizes the entire like culture because like, not to get too deep into the movie, but like everyone misremembers everyone's name all the time because, their actual names are never important. It's always their job titles or who they work for. And, if you think about it, like nobody has real connections at any point in this movie. Even Patrick Bateman and his fiance, like they both openly cheat on each other, and then he has no qualms about breaking up with her in public and has no heart in any of that relationship. So I feel like the movie actively satirizes its subject pretty effectively, personally.
Yeah, it's only I think it's only easy to get lost into like the glitz and glamour of the subject's life if you're not paying attention. Because even like all of these elaborate methods that Patrick is using to like fit in to like be one of the guys, every character that we meet actively disdains him. They actively call him a dork to his face, but they always assume that he's somebody else.
Yeah. And you mentioned that scene where people mix each other up. So this is the famous scene in the one of the movies. They had the business card scene, which is a big clip in the movie. So let me play that here.
All right,
Your compliment was sufficient, Lewis.
Hello, Halberstram. Nice tie. How the hell are you?
Alan has mistaken me for this dickhead Marcus Halberstram. It seems logical because Marcus also works at PNP and in fact does the same exact thing I do. He also has a penchant for Valentino suits and Oliver Peoples glasses. Marcus and I even go to the same barber, although I have a slightly better haircut.
So how's the rant?
Yeah, you see that?
motherfucker, you have the same haircut.
His is slightly better, man. You don't understand. You know what I mean? Slightly better his haircut.
Bro, you got
Uh,
and it's like a thing in the movie is that in something that I think Ellis was trying to go for in this novel for as like rugged and individualistic as Wall Street culture is, and it's like every man for himself to like make their fortune. Their entire like identity is to look the exact same. It's to like have this suit, have the nice house, have the hot fiance.
yeah.
Right. I mean, like you can tell just how like monotone the entire thing is by the fact that nobody has facial hair. Like they all have the same basic hairstyle. They all look more or less the exact same. There's no individuality between any of these guys.
Mm. And the way that Christian Bale plays it is very nice because he just kind of has this very smug dickhead face. When he's kind of smiling and is kind of like
Yeah,
very
it's like
smug.
that. I think in an interview, Christian Bale said that it was inspired by like a Tom Cruise appearance on David Letterman at the time, and it's had this like intense friendliness, but nothing behind the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he kind of has that kind of look there.
Mhm.
And this got that very smarmy type of face there that he kind of has, which kind of really works there. Do you all watch when they do those debates on like CNN and everything like that? Do you guys watch those? And it's like a panel, and this guy on there named Scott Jennings.
Oh, yes.
That guy,
yes.
and he always makes those type of faces too. On there, I kind of noticed there. Like he kind of just always has this kind of look on his face always, and that's kind of like that Patrick Bateman type, kind of smarmy type look that he has there, where he's kind of wrinkling up his forehead, or the kind of exaggerated smile and everything like that, but no real kind of emotion there behind it. It seems like.
Yeah, Scott Jennings is a professional heel on CNN these days.
Yeah. And then, you have the scene where you said like everybody kind of, boasting over these materialistic things, whether it be these kind of, suits or, what I mean, haircuts. And then you have also the business card here as well, which is another thing.
Is that a gram? New card. What do you think?
Oh, very nice. Look at that.
Picked them up from the printers yesterday.
Good coloring.
That's bone. And the lettering is something called Cillian Rail.
It's very cool, Bateman, but that's nothing.
That is really nice.
Eggshell with Romalian type. What do you think?
That's super. How to nitwit like you get so tasteful.
I can't believe that Bryce prefers Van Patten's card to mine.
Wait. You ain't seen nothing yet. Raised lettering. Pale nimbus. White.
Impressive. Very nice.
And
You just
my favorite thing about this, on top of Bale's performance, Acquisitions is misspelled on all of the cards.
Oh,
is
really?
Yeah, take
Let's
another
take a look.
look.
Oh, let's take a look. This is a good shot of it right here. So it says acquisitions, right? Mergers and acquisitions there.
Yeah, every
wow.
card says vice president, and Acquisitions is misspelled on all of them.
Wow.
You're right.
Oh, geez. I didn't pick up on that. That's a good catch there. But yeah, you just see him kind of just seething there, like this look on his face just right here. I mean, just completely just dead inside there.
Yeah, and he's having this fucking crash out when you like take a step back. They all look the fucking same.
Slightly different lettering, a little different.
It's a fucking business
shade of-
card, dude. And my favorite little note is that the one that causes Patrick's existential crisis, Paul Allen's card, it's in the same font as the title card in the movie.
Mm,
Oh,
nice. Okay, very good.
look at you doing some media literacy over here.
Look at the big brain on Nick here. Very nice. But yeah, I mean that's a great scene. I'm just like them, like going back and forth with these business cards. Like I said, like someone actually, handing someone a business card, like they're gonna hand them just to regular people more than yeah, but who's gonna really pay attention that much to the detail of this card all that much there? But I guess in this world, I guess it is something that is utmost important to them, along with things like getting these reservations. You always see him making reservations to all these different restaurants there and meeting with people, of getting in all these different trendy spots there.
Well, he's always trying to get into Dorcia's. He never actually can get inside
Yeah,
the
Dorcia in the movie is like his white whale, and the reason that he looks at Paul Allen and says, "You got to die,"
because he got reservations there.
Yeah. Since we're already talking the murders in this movie, where it gets kind of more violent there, with this, and we even see an actor, because I was trying to, I forgot to look it up there, but the actor who plays the homeless man who he kills there, is
Yeah,
that the guy from?
that's Reggie Cathy, who would go on to play in House of Cards.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was him. Yeah. And yeah, so there's that scene there. And then a lot of things that Christian Bale's character does as Patrick Bateman is when he kills people there, especially when he's talking to the sex workers, he goes into a long kind of diatribe about music and music history and music theory, and talks about people like Phil Collins and Whitney Houston there. Famously, Huey Lewis and the News is a big one, which I will play a little bit of that clip as well.
Which is definitely the most, I think, iconic scene from this movie.
Yeah, very much so there. How did you all like that, and think how did that kind of play into the movie, like his kind of music knowledge there with that?
Well, what's interesting about his music knowledge is that whenever he talks about it, it's almost like he's reading like an academic paper or like a review about it. Like he never just says like, "Hey, I like Huey Lewis and the News. I think they got cool music." It's always like this really, pretentious sort of high-minded stuff. It's almost like he's trying to justify, like trying to fake human emotions because he doesn't really know how to be a human. So he just basically projects word salad to try to act the part, unfortunately for him.
Yeah, everything about Patrick Bateman and as such, the whole like 80s yuppie culture and this kind of like this toxic masculinity you could read into it. It's all about trying to prove that he's better than everybody else. And like that's why he like has a crash out over not getting a table at Dorsia. That's why he like, instead of like talking about how much he likes Huey Lewis and the News or any of the other music that he goes into these long elaborate diatribes over, he has to like flex his knowledge. He has to like flex the meanings, the interpretations that he has, that anybody with the fucking access to Wikipedia could give you.
Well, this was the 80s, man. People didn't have just pull up Wikipedia, man, back then.
That is this is true.
This
is true. This movie exists in a time before message boards.
Now would be him going, Gronk, pull that up real quick. Tell me about the history. Let them know about the history of Huey Lewis and the News, man. You kind of got that going. But yeah, like you said, I mean, very much like, flexing his kind of, mental superiority over people, going like, I know this, kind of thing more than you there. Have more knowledge than you in this element, especially this music and him talking to these people there with that. And in one of the scenes with the sex workers, he's doing it. And then also when he has sex with the sex workers there, it's not even really, doesn't even seem like a real enjoyable thing for him. It just seems like, he's looking in the mirror, he's flexing there.
He's admiring the gains.
He's admiring the gains there, how good he looks, doing it there with that. And like, I don't know if, I mean, there was obviously men who were very much into their physique back in the 80s, because you did bodybuilders and everything like that. But is Patrick Bateman kind of one of the world's first looks maxers there? Like a lot of these people we see now, that isn't even are supposedly heterosexual, but yet they spend all this time focused on their looks, and then it's not to seem like to attract women, but it just seems like it's to just kind of maybe look better for other men, maybe. I mean, what's kind of your opinion there on that, Neil?
I definitely think there's a really strong case to that. I think, I also think there's a strong case that Patrick is a closeted gay man who is like overperforming masculinity to kind of prove himself like worthy of his stuff. But there definitely is an element of looks maxing and like trying to just project strength and masculinity rather than like enjoying the sex with the sex workers or anything in his life because it's all like projection with him.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's all projection, and I think Mary Herron was trying to like highlight the kind of transactional nature of sex work, because one of my favorite behind the scenes things is that in like the unrated version of this is it took like 17 seconds before they could get an R rating. And it wasn't because like the sex was too explicit. It was because the two female performers didn't look like they were enjoying themselves. That was like the
Mm.
whole thing and the whole point of that scene.
Mm.
Like it's not for like sexual pleasure. It's just to like say, hey, I'm, rich. I'm like physically attractive. I can get women, even though I have to pay for them.
You know,
Right.
and insert this dominance over the women there
Mhm.
with the money there. You see, with that as well with that. But yeah, I mean, you see him kind of flexing in the mirror, kind of looking at himself there, not really kind of even seems like he's even enjoying this too much experience there, just using the opportunity to do that there. And it kind of gets to a broader question there of people talk about, the kind of did it happen? Did it not happen? Did he really commit these murders there? Seeing an interview with Brent Easton Ellis there, who's talking about it, it's like, did it happen? Did it not happen? Was he really a serial killer? And he says that's, maybe just not the point of it, or you know what I mean? It's pointless to answer that because it's all about the ambiguity of it. It's normally I don't really like that too much in things of, you know what I mean? Like all the kind of ambiguity, but here I think it really works quite well there. What did you think about that, Nick?
Yeah, ambiguity. I both love it and hate it as a lover of film, because I feel like a lot of filmmakers and a lot of writers will use ambiguity as just an excuse to have a bad ending. But here, so much of the text is about poking holes and satirizing or critiquing this like excessive consumerism and the whole like hollowness of yuppie culture, that having the ending be ambiguous, it honestly it adds to the text versus like other people who use that tool, and it just like takes away from whatever it is that you were trying to say.
What about you now?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, having Patrick Bateman kind of be an unreliable narrator and like a functioning psychopath and really lends to the ambiguity, like playing into the text and the themes of the movie. So I think it totally works in this case. I'm with you. Sometimes it doesn't, but I think with this material and this character, it works perfectly.
Yeah, and especially because of like the different interpretations. Like one that I've read is that every event that we see in the movie happens, but I think it's even like a line that is dropped when he's talking to Reese Witherspoon and talking about how his dad basically owns the company he works for. So he's basically just like so rich and powerful that even him being a serial killer, they can just like throw money at it and get everything swept under the rug. Even like the apartment that Paul Allen's apartment, he like goes on this murder spree and then he goes back the next day and it's completely wiped clean.
Yeah. And you see that, he makes a big confession after he goes on like this Grand Theft Auto kill. He gets like a kill streak.
He goes on his 3-star GTA run.
Yeah.
Right.
And you could say even that's kind of fantastical in this sense, because all of a sudden he just pulls out a gun and just starts shooting people, shooting old ladies, shooting security guards, shooting at the police there.
Well, he shoots a car and it blows up like instantly.
Shoots a car, blows up there. All of a sudden he's like goddamn Snape with
he's
the
got
gun there.
aimbot on.
Yeah, just
Right.
instant high. So it's like it adds to it of like this is kind of bullshit. Like this isn't really happening. This has to be all in his head there. With that. And then yeah, you see that the next day it's like he, you see him at the night confess everything to I think it was his business partner, his lawyer.
Yeah, it's like his lawyer, and they talk about it the next day, and it's like, dude, that prank call was hilarious, man.
Yeah. You see, and he's just kind of just stuck in this state there of
And even that lawyer calls him a different name. He doesn't call him Patrick Bateman.
Yeah, I think he calls them something else. He calls him does he call him Marcus or Paul?
Yeah, some other
Marcus.
different name.
I think he calls him Marcus there, if I remember correctly. Do you remember it all, Neil?
No, but it's just a different name.
Yeah, it's a different name there. So he even calls him that there and then even when, Christian Bale's again, he's trying to confess to him again, like, no, I killed Paul Allen. I did this, you know what I mean? I murdered him. He even says like, well, that's not possible because I had dinner with him in London 10 days ago. So it's not possible that you did that. And he goes like, what the fuck? So it's just like, what's kind of happening there? And you see that he's kind of just stuck in this existence there, this kind of hollow, meaningless existence. Then nothing can kind of break him free of that. Killing all these people, doing all these horrendous things there, nothing will kind of bring him freedom from. And it's just like the last shot of the movie is just that, kind of lingering on him, just kind of staring into just nothingness there, I thought.
Yeah, and on a door behind him, it's a sign that says this is not an exit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of get that. And then as to Neil's point there, you bring up the sexuality of the character there. You do have a character in this who is a closeted gay man in this. I mean, from that scene from the business card, people can probably point out which one it is. Probably it's not that hard to probably point it out.
Right.
Which character is the one that is like explicitly in the closet.
Yeah, it's not that really hard to kind of figure out there.
And something that is striking to me about this movie, especially on rewatch, because all the people that Patrick kills, they like misname him, or like in his worldview are people that don't matter. It's like homeless people, sex workers, the models that he dates and sleeps with. But the two people in this movie that he spares are, I think, the only two characters that ever call him by his real name, or at least make an attempt to get to know him on a different level.
Yeah, his secretary, played by Chloe Sevigny, and that closeted man that we were talking about.
Lewis, who is played in this by Matt Ross.
Yeah. You have that there. So you see that. And again, all these seems very uncomfortable, like what he's doing there and how he's able to switch kind of these different tones there in the movie, Christian Bale there. It's what made people think, because they are doing a remake of this movie. Luca Guadagnino is doing it, Luca Guadagnino, who's done such movie. He did Suspiria, he did that movie there, Call Me by Your Name, Challengers. So he has a pretty decent resume there. And it's just right now, it seems like the issue is finding a lead actor for the role, because it's like a lot of people are going, man, I don't want to step into the shoes of Christian Bale and what he did as Patrick Bateman. Like, that's such a great performance there with that.
And on top of that, Mary Harron
Army Hammer.
Army Hammer. He'd just be playing himself. He'd be like, oh shit, I don't even do that. Oh man.
And it's kind of a big ask, because the Mary Harron film, it's already kind of like the perfect adaptation of Ellis's novel. What new ground is there to cover by remaking this? I guess like maybe talking about, current influencer cultures, like lambasting the, people on the internet now, but I don't know what new ground there is.
That you bring that up, that actually might be an interesting angle to it, and maybe go in the more psychological route, because the book is a bit more nebulous in its structure, and it goes off on weird tangents that are not even addressed in the movie. Like in the book, there's a chapter that is all about how much he loves Cheerios, and then as it goes on, they start not using punctuation marks to separate sentences, and it just goes off into just complete nutsville. So I don't know how you translate that into screen, but that might be an interesting way to approach the material.
Yeah, well, that's how I feel about Cheerios, so I kind of understand. I mean, they're good for your heart, man.
There's a message in my alphabet. It says "ooh."
And they also, I mean, they did do a sequel to American Psycho, which was direct to DVD. I have not seen that.
Yeah, that is barely a sequel to the film. It was like went through its entire production under a completely different name, and they only added the American Psycho label because they realized that this movie was a hit.
Yeah. Which you have Mila Kunis, who's the serial killer in this movie. I've not seen this. I hear it's god awful.
It is horrendous.
Gotcha. What's the story? Just like just another crazy person, and you just seeing it.
Yeah, it's like she's like murdering all of her fellow classmates to try and like con her way into becoming William Shatner's teacher's assistant, because she thinks that'll like get her into the FBI. It's a fucking mess.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it really that just seeing that trailer, it just looks like a cheap TV show that somehow got made into a feature length movie.
And this was like 4 seasons into that 70s show and 2 seasons into Mila Kunis's time on Family Guy. Why did she do this?
Maybe she went to
She must have signed up for this like earlier on, and like they just must have cashed a rain check or something like that.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe it'll be fun to watch maybe one day to watch American Psycho 2 when I got nothing else to watch. Maybe I'll put that on. Yeah. But yeah, so like the daunting task of trying to do a follow-up to a movie like this and trying to follow my, it just seems very hard there. And luckily, I mean, a woman was able to do this. Woman was able to write and direct this there. Guinevere Turner will also co-wrote this movie also with Mary Harnon there. We almost got Oliver Stone, who was initially attached to it. He was going to do it with Leonardo DiCaprio before Leonardo DiCaprio backed out. Another consideration was David Cronenberg there, but it had Patrick Bateman turn into like a werewolf or some shit like that. He turned into a fucking alien or some shit. It had that kind of aspect to it as well. Could you see any of them directing American Psycho, Oliver Stone or David Cronenberg?
I feel like I'd like to take a peek into that alternate timeline where David Cronenberg directed this, but I feel like Oliver Stone doing it would just be him doing Wall Street all over again.
Yeah, Cronenberg would definitely be the more interesting stylistic choice, and I think it would have lined up with the novel a bit more. So that I would have liked to have seen that, and like you said, an alternate universe.
Yeah, very cool there. So this was the scene there with it. I'll play a little bit of because they do play music in it, so I won't play too much of it there. But just to get a little sense of Christian Bale's kind of personality there when he's in his kind of killing mode there, as Patrick Bateman there.
Compared to Elvis Costello, have a far more bitter, cynical sense of humor. Hey, Albert, yes, Alan?
Why are there copies of the style section on the page? You have a dog? Chow or something?
No, Helen.
Is that?
Yes, it is. In '87, Huey released this. 4, their most accomplished album. I think their undisputed masterpiece is Hip to Be Swift.
No notes.
Because it's not just about the pleasures of conformity and the importance of trend. It's also a personal statement about the band itself. Hey, Paul!
Jesus Christ. Oh man. And I love the top comment here. The top comment says Patrick Bateman hitting Paul with an axe is a subtle hint. He doesn't like him. Amazing directing. That was good. I laughed at that. That's pretty funny.
Patrick heard 30 Seconds to Mars' first album.
I wonder what will be Patrick Bateman's breakdown of 30 Seconds to Mars. Analysis on that. Oh man. So go around, get you guys' final thoughts rating there for American Psycho. Neil, what will be your final thoughts rating for it, man?
My final thoughts are this is a pretty perfect satire of 80s culture and consumerism and just the portrait of a functioning psychopath. I think this is basically a perfect dark comedy, and I think it's stood the test of time really well, and I give it a peak cinema. This is one of Christian Bale's best performances, and this is rightfully remembered as a cult classic, so peak cinema.
Wow. What about you there, Nick?
Yeah, I gotta echo a lot of Neil's points. This is like a perfect satire and parody of kind of the hollowness of like yuppie culture, but it's one of those, I think, timeless things where you could take a lot of what Ellis and Mary Harron and Guinevere Turner, a lot of what they're saying about the excess of the 80s, and you can apply that to just about any time period. I'm surprised how prescient this movie is, even watching it now, but in 2026. Like I said, this is easily a top 3 Christian Bale performance, and for my money, it isn't 3. This is damn near peak cinema. I'm shocked how funny it is, how how it is kind of this portrait of of a functioning psychopath. And I like that its ambiguity, it serves to add to the text versus like what I was saying before about how a lot of writers will use that as just a tool to not write their ending.
Mm, yeah. And you give it a peak?
Yeah, this is peak cinema. This is one of my favorites.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, for everybody who does all the Sigma male grind edits there that you see, people might know him from such things.
American Psycho is explicitly calling you a fucking dork.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you kind of got that element there. This is even kind of like the meme. I looked up the meme template for it of what people use apparently for the Sigma grind set kind of aspect. You know, just like yeah, kind of dead in the eyes kind of expression there. Yeah, that works really well. I mean, yeah, Christian Bale really nails it here. So it's hard to see anybody coming after him and kind of trying to do this. There's rumors maybe Austin Butler maybe would kind of
Oh.
maybe do it there. But man, this is really because he just put such a staple on this role here, and he's absolutely fantastic in it. And I looked at even like the best actor nominations from you know, the year after there. It was the year that Russell Crowe won for Gladiator. So so Christian Bale wasn't even nominated for this performance, which is kind of seems like kind of wild to me there. But yeah.
Right.
But this is such an impressive movie. All the kind of topics it handles there. We dug into it of yuppie culture there, of digging at of 1980s New York. There they even mentioned Trump in this as well there. You know what I mean? Which he's I think mentioned heavily in the book. Actually,
Yeah, he's mentioned he's basically like you mentioned Dorsey as his white whale. In the book, Trump is his white whale.
Yeah. I mean, he's mentioned more in the book than the Epstein files, I think. You know what I mean? There's a lot of his name in the book. So you kind of got that going there. That kind of looked the satire in the movie, the way it kind of blends that in. It's kind of also darkly humorous there, while also being kind of very terrifying and scary there. I think that works really well. So it's done really kind of masterfully, and the kind of the ambiguity of it. Something normally, you know, it was all a dream or it was all in his head, like, you know, at the end of that movie with The Weeknd, I was like, oh man, fuck you. But you know, this here really knows how to do it and really knows how to play with that and really works it very well. So I got to give it a very high peak. I absolutely love American Psycho there. One of the very best movies there, I think, of the 21st century there. Works incredibly well. So yeah. High peaks all around for American Psycho there.